Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bankroll Burners, the podcast for poker players who can't stop getting it in bad. I'm Mike.
And I'm Josh.
And as always, we are here. We are bad at poker, and we are going to talk about some hands that we have played recently. We're going to walk through them with each other and with you. And then we have a guest on this episode. Yay!
Yay, we love guests. Love people. If you'd like to be on the podcast, of course, let us know. We like having guests. It's always fun to get a new perspective. And frankly, our hands are not as nearly as interesting as having new people.
Right, yeah. We like to hear other plays, whether they be donkish or great, and we can learn a lot from that. So I guess we can get right into it.
Yeah, I guess you haven't been able to play much this week, but I'm glad to hear you have a hand anyway.
Yeah, haven't been able to get to the card room this week, but that's okay. I have a hand from an online game.
Well, it's probably for the best that neither of us are poker pros.
That's true. Yeah, if I was at the card room every day, the bankroll would burn far too quickly. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this is from a 1-1 online game. No ante, just straight 1-1. We are 8-handed, and this is from our typical online home game. Very actiony, very splashy type of room, and we are $150 effective in this hand. So we're 150 big ones.
Fairly deep.
Yeah. I mean, nothing crazy, but and in this hand, this is like one of the first hands of the game, so I really don't, and it's mostly players I'm not familiar with, so I don't really have a read on anybody, including the villain in this hand, who is the cutoff. So,
okay, that's a great background. So you don't really recognize many of the people. Have you played with this villain before? Or
I don't think I've ever played with this villain before, unless they're using a different, screen name, which is entirely possible. But
right, okay.
So this villain opens to $4. Which is, I thought, interesting. Like, large, typically people in these rooms will open to 2 or 3 big blinds.
And especially from late position, some people I've seen, will open a little bit bigger in early position just because you have more people to get through. I feel like I've seen some theory that says you can do that in, like, these online games. In more real online games, but...
Yeah, I think it is interesting. Even in live games, there's definitely a debate. It's like, should you open larger from early position? And the way I've heard the debate framed is like, well, on the one hand, you want to disincentivize calls because you're going to be out of position, so you want to open larger. But on the other hand, you don't want to play a large pot from out of position.
Yeah.
You don't want to raise very large.
It is interesting because I have definitely, even in a 1-3 game, like open to 10 from the button sometimes because it's like I don't need to get through that many people. But on the other hand, the big blind might be incentivized to call anyway when they're like, I have a discount, I have to call. And then you do want to play larger pots in position. So that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't really subscribe. I mean, I guess I subscribe to the open to the same size from any position school of thought, but I don't feel very strongly about it. It's just how I...
Okay, so Phil, in this case, I agree. $4, a little bit of a big open. I'd kind of be already thinking that's big.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. And the button calls immediately.
Perfect.
And I'm sitting in the big blind with 7 of hearts, 6 of hearts.
Okay.
And I feel like this is a good squeeze spot.
I think I could go either way, totally fine with this hand. I mean, we're very deep. I don't think calling is the worst option. I mean, being out of position sucks a bit. We are in the big blinds. We're getting a fantastic price. But love playing a bit more aggressively. We talked last week, I think, about this exact hand, 7-6 suited. Good to squeeze once in a while, especially with the button caller. I think if the... Yeah,
I will say, with the button caller, I really don't want to call this hand very much. Like, I think it's actually... I think it's fine to fold once in a while, honestly. I mean, I don't tend to do that much, but, like, I think calling multi-way out of position to 2 people is going to suck. I think it's going to be really hard to realize your equity.
That's true. The only thing is, if we 3-bet, I mean, if the button calls, like if this were a live game and like the button calls, like there are so many people who will like call on the button, and then if you squeeze and the cutoff calls, the button will just kind of shrug, call again. And then you're like playing, kind of run into that same issue where now you're playing a 3-way, 3-bet pot out of position to both opponents, which is just not somewhere you want to be. In this game, it's probably less likely.
Yes, but you will have the betting lead, which is better. I would
Yes,
say
of course, of
bloated pot
course.
with betting lead is better than not the betting lead in a smaller pot. Actually, I think.
I agree. That's true, but obviously being out of, I mean, we've talked a lot about how being out of position just sucks so much because it's like, checking out of position just is so awful.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say, folding this hand, I would consider to be fairly nitty. I
I
think
wouldn't I wouldn't fold this. I probably would never fold this hand, honestly. But I like pressing call. I like seeing flops. But like you have, I mean, again, you're quite deep. You have plenty of equity, even three ways. I don't hate a call, but I love squeezing this hand with the caller in. So sounds like that's what you do, and I assume you go 20-ish.
Yep. I go 20.
Perfect. Makes sense.
Yeah. And the cutoff makes it 45.
Makes it 45. Okay.
Which is really small. It's a really small format. I mean, it's sort of like, I guess, in theory, the solver does like to use these like 2.25x, in which case that's exactly 2.25x, so fair enough. But in my mind, like, in a true online game, if this was like ACR or something, like I would expect that to be the sizing, but this is much more home game, like live pokery. I would think like in a live game, I would never use that sizing. I would go at least 50, if not 60.
Yeah.
I do think this is a little small.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it seems like, I agree it's a little small. Like, if obviously, as you say, if he's sticking to theory, this might be more or less accurate. In practice, it might just be a hand where, like, he doesn't really want to play a huge pot, but he also doesn't want to call and have the button call behind.
Fair.
So
Yeah.
so he makes it 45. I think it's probably just to squeeze out the button more than anything.
Yeah, and the button does fold quickly. And we call. I mean, honestly, it might be a fold. But because it's, the pot's then going to be like close to $100. And we're going to have 100 behind. So it's like only one SPR. It's really hard to play these suited connectors out of position without the betting lead, without the ability to play a 3-street game, which you can't really do in a 1 SPR pot. I mean, what do you think? Is this just a fold?
I think you just have to fold here when there's like a 1 SPR. It's just like a really tough spot to play post flop. We are at the bottom of our range. We're not at the bottom, but it's not as you say out of position. Like there are not many hands I would want to call with here, to be honest, right? I mean, especially like we are. I don't even know if we're deep enough given the betting. If the cutoff makes it 45, like, and we had. I mean, if you had like aces, kings, or ace king, right? If you had something that you would consider 5-betting shallow, I don't know if we're shallow enough to 5-bet quite. If we 5-bet jam, it's like 3x is raised total. But
I don't think so. Because the thing, like, I don't think if we have aces here, I don't think we're gonna fold. We're gonna jam because we can call and we can get all of the money in on the turn, no matter what happens.
Yeah. Then I think I prefer then. Given that we're calling with like our whole continuing range and we're not 5-betting, then I think that pushes the suited connectors even lower in like our calling. Because it. I mean, I think we can just fold these sort of low hands. We're not 3-betting them at a high frequency anyway, so they're also not a high percentage of our range, like not a big percentage of our range. So I think we can comfortably shave them off. Obviously, I mean, there are other hands that we probably don't want to call 4-bets with, like King Jack, King Queen.
Ace Queen offsuit, probably not a call.
Yeah, exactly. Those sort of hands. But again, I just don't think like the 6-7s and 7-8s, like you're probably only going to have, one combo, right? You're probably only going to be 3-betting them 25% of the time, or maybe you're 3-betting more.
It's more often now though because of the dead caller in the middle. I'm probably mostly 3-betting the hand.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
Might be a mistake, but probably a bit spewy. But.
Yeah, I mean it is a small size, but it's also like, as you said, I think it's basically going to be a 1 SPR on the flop. It kind of almost runs into the same issues where, you have a pretty high. I mean, if you flop a pair or like an open ender or a gutter or something, you're just going to be faced with some pretty difficult decisions right off the bat. Where like, his 4-betting range should be fairly strong, even though it was a relatively small sizing.
Yep, I think for all those reasons I should have folded. But obviously I did not because we're talking about this hand.
Not gonna, as we say, we don't like to be the pre-flop police.
Yeah. So I do continue here. And by the way, if we were very deep, I think this is just a straight continue. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if we have the opportunity to have a bit more playability across multiple streets, happy to continue.
Yeah. So anyway, the flop is interesting. It's 9 of spades, 4 of hearts, 3 of spades. Once again, there's close to 100 in the pot.
So we flop a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw?
That's correct.
Okay.
So villain does something which I consider pretty interesting. Obviously, I check.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever leading in a 4-bet pot.
Nope.
So villain bets $20, so about 20% pot. And I will say we do see that reflected in solvers for like ace high boards in a 4-bet pot. We'll see even like 10%, 15% bets.
Yeah.
20% bet with a 9 high board, I thought was kind of odd.
I think the thing is that, like, because ranges get so condensed in like 4-bet pots, that like most boards kind of are treated similarly. Mm-hmm. Just because, like, nobody should have pocket 3s or pocket 4s here. You might have more pocket 9s, probably. But like, then there's like the most of your range should be like, Broadway E.
Right.
Like for both of you, really. So it is an interesting spot, but that kind of feels like this board also isn't like a board where you might expect him to polarize more. As it would be a lot more connected, right? Like maybe 9-10 Jack or something like that. That's just like super connected. Maybe it's monotone. Maybe there's a flush draw. There's a much more dynamic board. When you look at this board from the perspective of like a 4-bet pot, you really shouldn't interact with this board even as much as you do. To be like, this is about as much as you can interact with it without having like a set.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, which does lend itself to a small continue size, but I guess like if he bets 25 here or 30, I think he's getting the exact same action from my entire range.
Sure.
Like, I don't think any hand becomes a call or fold based on that difference in size given this board. So in the pre-flop action, so I think like it's more efficient to bet a little larger for that reason.
The stack sizes are another place where you can think about like where a small bet might be better, just because then if you bet larger, like even if you bet 30, right, and if he bets 30 and you call, the pot's 160 and then you both have like 75, you have like less than half pot left.
That's actually a good point. So maybe this is why he's taking the size.
Whereas like if you bet 20, the pot will be 140 and you'll have like 85, 90 left, and now you have a little bit more left. So maybe, and I don't know, obviously if he's like a playing balance, then that can affect both his like, both his like bluffs and value, and leave you the ability to fold. Versus if he bets 30, like you're basically going to be priced in, or if you jam, he's going to be priced in. So just
that's true. Yeah, just he might be thinking along those lines and be saying like, hey, I want to get the money in on the turn. Let me take a small sizing here, so there's some perceived fold equity on the turn, whatever. So, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking this through. I'm not saying this was a terrible play from me, but anyway, I think I have to call here.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we flop we can call. What do you think about raising this board?
The only value hand I would ever do it with is 9-9, right? That's it.
Yeah.
So I guess so maybe I'll have ace sometimes too that may raise here. Although, well, yeah, I might raise with ace. So I guess if I do have some of those check raise hands, I do need some bluffs. I would rather have the ace of spades in my bluffs, I think.
Well, I mean, or if you had this same hand with spades, right? If you had 6-7 of spades or 5-6 of spades.
Maybe. Possibly that's true as well. I'm thinking I just want to have the ace of spades so I block his nut flush draws.
Sure.
That will continue. But yeah, that's true. This hand with spades too would be.
Yeah, because I almost think not having the ace of spades. I mean, having like 2 low cards is nice because it unblocks all his overpairs, which also are probably going to call a jam on a board like this. You'd have to
that's what I'm
think.
saying. Like, I just don't think that. Like, I want to block his calling range, which I think
Yeah, sure.
many of his calls contain the ace of spades. So.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But so I'm okay calling here. Again, we are just getting a great price. We're like almost getting direct odds to hit a gut shot, which is not common that you actually get that.
Yeah, you need, I think, what is it, 7-1? So we're getting 6-1. So.
Yeah. So with the implied odds, because if a 5 comes, it really shouldn't change all that much. So okay. So we call. I think that's fine.
Turn is where things get interesting. So the turn is a 6 of spades.
Okay, so the front door flush gets there, and we now have a pair.
We have a pair, yeah. Pretty interesting.
We've got 6-7 of hearts. Board is 9 of spades, 4 of hearts, 3 of spades, and now the 6 of spades rolls off. And if he was bluffing with 5-7, he just binked it.
He binked it. He binked the 5-7. So, could we ever consider leading this card? Probably not, right?
I just don't know if we really should. Like, again, I don't know if we should interact here. Like, and again, if we're like, it feels like as you've mentioned, like a lot of our flushes, we should be jamming on the flop, right? If we had like an ace high flush draw.
We have an ace high flush draw, yes, but not if we have a lower flush draw. But we don't have that many lower flush draws. Is the thing. We have like king queen of spades.
Right. But it is an awkward spot because, of course, we have picked up a pair, Right. So if we check and he jams, we're still in just like a pretty tough spot because, like, we do unblock any sort of ace-king, ace-queen suited sort of hands.
Right. At this point, it's good to not have spades. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No.
It's bad to not have spades, but obviously there are a number... There should be a number of 4-betting hands in his range that are... unpaired and unflushed.
Yeah, it's sort of awkward. I don't really think we can lead. I was just sort of curious what you thought. But
yeah, it's 4-bet pots. I think this is a good hand because we don't talk too much about 4-bet pots because, frankly, they just don't happen live most of the time.
Yeah, they're definitely more common in these online games. But I do check.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
This is where the hand gets weird. Villain bets $15.
Wow.
So I was like, usually when you say like, oh, it's a really small bet, it's like the same thing as a check. But like, this is where it's kind of weird here though, because like the SPR is so small. Like it would be like him jamming here would be really normal bet sizing. Like, what is he doing? Do we have fold equity on a jam if we check jam here? Like, I don't know. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, it is interesting when he makes this bet. Like, does he bet like this? With like an overpair with no spade. Like, is that what this is indicating? Is that in his range? Is it just indicating 2 overcards that are like trying to get value from your? I don't know what that could possibly be trying to get value from, right? So it's like a really weird spot because like it feels like he really shouldn't have spades here.
Yes, I think he never has a flush when he does this.
Right? Like, could he be betting... Like, and it almost feels like overpairs with a spade should also be jamming.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it, right? Because of their blocking properties. Which almost makes me think that we do have some fold equity. Right?
Right, will he fold an overpair? Like, I agree. Like, in game, I was like, he probably has, like, an overpair here with no spade. And he's, like, really, like, scared of betting. He's, like, literally, like, very big sizing tell. Like, he's not sure how strong it's like he's trying to see where he's at.
Right.
So, and obviously, I think with this action, I think our pair of sixes is never good, by the way. He's doing this without some showdown value. I think he's trying to buy a showdown, basically. Right,
because I think what he wants is us to, if we call then the action would go check on the river.
Right, that's what he wants.
And in that case, you're like, honestly, right? My options, the things I would consider here are jamming here or calling and leading the river.
Lead jamming.
Like lead most rivers. Like it's definitely undercards. Think about, overcards, maybe not, because those definitely do interact with him quite a bit. But I kind of want to stick it in here and get him off, try and get him to fold those hands because it does feel like it's just such a weak bet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think lead jamming river is weird, honestly. Like I don't know. Like it's such an odd play. It doesn't really make a ton of sense that we would like do it for value, really. So I think that we do need to jam here or fold. I actually think we can fold, but well, I mean, I guess no, that's not true. We should never fold because we're getting direct odds probably to make some kind of draw here.
Yeah, although it's weird because like the 5 of spades like is maybe not a clean out or may not get us any more value. Like the 5 of spades would be a really weird card because there might be some chance he's doing this with an overpair with a spade and is really just doing it to see where he's at once in a while. But I do agree that this is pretty much always an overpair regardless of spade, and I would think it's weighted towards no spade.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're getting 10-1 on our call, so like it can't be that bad to call, in hindsight. But I do end up ripping it in,
and I think that's fine. I mean, it's just such a weird based on this sizing, it almost makes me think that the villain is just gonna like tank call anyway, with like his overpair with no spade.
That's what happens. He tank calls and shows king, no spade.
Yeah, which is just like weird because it's like he just like I don't know why he bet 15 and that if he's gonna like to call a shove instead of just shoving himself. Like maybe he's trying to induce, but it seems like he's gonna be behind. Like you shouldn't have that many bluffs in your range here, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean it's weird. It's a weird line, but you were exactly right. King, no spade. Get there.
Did we bink the river?
We do not bank the river. No.
Well, get good.
You know what the lesson here is, Josh? Fold pre.
Fold. That is a lesson, yeah. So it turns out he did make a strong 3-bet or 4-bet pre, and he was just trying to keep some playability or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. So, okay, well that's my hand.
Cool. Well, I think that's an interesting one. Always fun to go through it in more theory. Mine is going to be very different, I will warn you. I played in a game 2 nights ago. It was a Friday night for reference. I started the session around 7, played until like 1:30. It was a nice long session. It was a crazy table. People were going, I mean, it was a Friday night at 1-3. At Encore, there were guys. There were... Basically, like I was wearing my college sweatshirt, and I kind of look like a nerd, and so everybody just assumes that I bluff all the time. And like even when I don't bluff, like even when I show like very very few bluffs, people will just assume that I'm going crazy,
right? Because
I give off that sense that I'm like thinking.
Yeah.
And like so, I won like a 250 big blind pot again from a guy who cold called a large 3-bet with king queen offsuit and hit top pair and decided that top pair was good and I was just going to attempt to bluff all 3 streets.
But you had it.
Which I of course hit the flush on the turn, and he told me that I had not hit the flush as he called. So it's that sort of action. It was a weird table because it was playing kind of nitty and like not nitty but like very standard live poker for the first couple hours. Like it was full of limp calls, 6-way flops after a raise, and then like at some point like 5 people left and like 5 like young Asian aggro players sat down and then for an hour it was just like 4-bet pots every hand.
Oh my God.
And then they started playing like normal ABC poker as the night went on. So I don't know what that was about, but
it's probably about they ran out of stack to continue 4-betting. So.
No, but like they were still in the game. Like they kept rebuying, and instead they just kind of settled down. We were all drinking, and everybody was just kind of moving on with their lives in a normal fashion. So just a weird table dynamic, very changing table. But in this hand, we are against the main villain of this hand is going to be kind of one of the best players at the table for the game. One of the players who I really wanted to play against and did play against all night and took a lot of money from. He was like drinking a lot. He was just like there with his wife who was playing the slots. He was definitely there to have a good time. He was not playing with any sort of strategy. We all cheered him on. Like everybody kind of knew he was good for the game. Like at one point he just called like a massive turn shove with ace queen high against a pair of jacks and just binked the queen, and he just went crazy.
This is a VIP, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's great. He was a wonderful guy. We love playing with him. So it kind of lends itself to a weird pre-flop decision, and here we go. So At this point, I am actually relatively short stacked. I've got about 375 in this 1-3 game. The straddle was on for most of the night. There were a few players who weren't straddling, and this particular hand is just going to be a 1-3 game. So no straddle on. I'm the effective stack, and it's going to start when Under the Gun raises up to 10. Under the Gun is a relatively tight, one of these Asian aggro players. A little bit more tight, but this raise to 10 I also think is quite small even for him.
Yeah, it's pretty small for that game, I think.
It is small. The standard raise is 15, and he's been raising to 12 or 15, so might be a weaker hand, potentially.
Small pocket pair.
Might be a small pocket pair. The next player folds. The VIP calls from middle position. I'm in the hijack now with 5-4 of clubs. I elect to actually put in the 3-bet here. I realize it's a little loose to be 3-betting. My hope was, given that this was after the table had calmed down a bit and people were kind of back to their tight passive usual ways. My hope was basically that given the Under the Gun player's small sizing, he'd be folding a lot to this 3-bet, and then I'd get to play heads up with the VIP because he was most certainly not going to fold.
Mm-hmm.
I do recognize it's a little loose. I'm happy to talk about it and not defend myself.
Yeah, fold pre, but even so, I do like to play large pots in position with whales, so I don't hate this. I think this is fine. It's exploitative, very much so, like not a good play, but good contextually. I think this is fine.
Yeah, obviously if we get 4-bet, we're going to fold, like from anyone, and it might be that, the Under the Gun player is concealing, but like every time I think that, like whenever I see someone raise huge, and I'm like, oh, they wouldn't do this with aces or kings. It's aces or kings.
Right.
Like, people don't play this sneaky way, So I put in the raise to 40, and everyone folds except the VIP.
Yay!
Which is great. So I did think that the original opener might call or even put in a 4-bet. I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah.
And we've got 5-4 clubs, and the flop is going to come a good one. It's Queen of Clubs, 3 of Clubs, Deuce of Clubs.
All right, so you flop the smallest possible flush.
Yes.
And the pot is going to be $90 roughly?
Basically $90. And I've also got an open-ended straight flush redraw, just in case I need it.
The super nuts, yeah. You have a draw to the super nuts.
And now, something is going to happen in this hand that we've talked about a number of times. And the villain is going to start by leading for 60.
60? That's a big lead.
That is a relatively big lead. Yeah. And he does cover me. He's definitely got a lot in his stack. Again, he has definitely been winning pots. Like, he's been running pretty well. Except against me. I keep flopping it against him.
Have you seen him do this before?
Yeah, he definitely, donks. I don't think there's necessarily, a rhyme or reason all the time. Like, he's definitely leading in, weird spots with both value and bluffs. And it's not, a value bluff range that you or I would construct. It's more... It's probably based on his reads a lot of the time. Like, I've seen him bluff people off with just, the most random hands, and I've seen him get value with, middle pair.
Right.
So...
Yeah, I mean, this could be it's probably not 2-pair. Probably. There's not a lot of 2-pair. I mean, I guess he could have Queen 3 suited if he's really out to lunch.
Oh, he certainly could.
All right. So, I don't know. I mean... It seems to me, if he can have Queen Deuce and Queen 3 and pocket 3s and pocket deuces, I mean, this is a slam dunk raise, I think.
Okay, I kind of think I can just call because I also think he could just be, doing it with 2 cards that he just wants to bet.
That's true. I mean, I guess, yeah, we don't want to scare him off if he's just bluffing. I mean, he's putting 60 into 90, so when you call, the pot will be 210. You're going to have... 275 behind. It's not like you're going to struggle to get the money in, especially in position. So, I mean, here's the thing. If another club comes off, is really, really bad.
Yeah, that's true. And it's kind of a weird spot. Like the one thing about this villain that I will say is I haven't seen him triple barrel bluff, ever. He's been doing a lot of, donk bluffing, but he's pretty much gives up, all rivers. Okay. So my plan is, I'm also cognizant of the fact that he definitely could have a higher flush, which would suck. And if he goes bet jam, I'm probably gonna call, but if nothing changes, but it's just something to consider that I don't necessarily want to overplay my hand against better value. I don't necessarily want to get him off like any bluffs he might have when I'm in position.
That's true. I will say, I don't think you have enough stack depth to care about getting flush over flush.
That's true. It's hard to make
if you're going to play 4-5 suited at these depths,
yeah, that's true.
Can't ever actually be concerned about getting flush over flush. So, it will, you just can't. I really think that can't even be a consideration.
I agree. So, if I'm going to make this play with 4-5 and I get flush over flush, I kind of deserve it.
Exactly. So, yeah. What I would actually do here, Josh, and this is not a balanced play. This is a play that I really don't think is good, but this is what I would do against this villain, is I would make it 120.
Okay, that's interesting, because I do think he will call.
He's not going to fold anything.
Yeah, I mean, he might. The issue, again, the thing I am thinking at the time, and I see your point, and I think raising probably makes sense, but especially to protect myself from another club. But I just want to keep his air in, basically, because I do think he has some number of air hands.
But you aren't going to get. You said he doesn't triple barrel bluff, right? So you aren't going to get his stack.
That's true. That's true.
So I kind of want to maximize the value we get from the actual real hands, because we make it 120. He calls. Then the pot is then 230, and we have
the pot's going to be 350 basically, which is right. No, it's going to be 330. Yeah, 330.
330. Yeah. Pot's going to be 330. We're going to have about 200 behind. We stick it in on the turn. That's how I want to take this.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Probably makes sense to get the most value. But I'm kind of thinking, this is a weird donk. Could be air. I'm just going to call, evaluate turns. And I do get immediately punished as the turn comes the 9 of clubs.
Guess it can be that bad.
And he now puts the classic live play into practice of donk bet, same bet. And he makes it 60.
Baby.
And he makes it 60 again.
Okay. I wonder if he has pocket aces.
I do think he would raise pocket aces. He definitely had pre-flop. He has raised pre-flop. He has 3-bet pre-flop. He has not just been limp call only.
Okay.
So
people show up here with the weirdest stuff, but this strikes me so much as this is such a not strong hand.
Right, and I know we usually say that about donk bet same bet is it's so often a weak top pair. It's a second pair holding a nut under pair sort of thing, right? If he shows up with pocket 10s or pocket 8s or something without a club, it wouldn't be that surprising. The thing that threw me off is because this particular card it made it a 4 flush board. It's even most villains who exercise this donk bet same bet might are not necessarily going to do that in this situation with if they don't have a club, if they have queen 10 offsuit without a club. It would surprise me to see that sort of play here.
I think in normal situations, yes, but as you've described this villain, I have absolutely seen players bet to see where they're at on a 4 flush board.
Wow.
I have seen it. So
well, so in that case, do you like a call here? Because against against most of his range, then we're squarely ahead and can't really lose.
Yeah. I mean, if we raise, how much does he have to then call? If we shove, right? What would he call? What would it be?
If we shove, he'd have to call about 215. It looks like
to win,
350.
Sorry, to win
335, basically 330.
I don't know. I don't think he'll call a shove. I don't know if I don't know that he's going to call any raise at this point. So it might just be a square call and then thinly value bet river.
Is there? I mean, do you think there's any? I mean, this is actually also a spot where I thought about the possibility of him having a higher flush, because specifically of this sort of donk bet same bet move where this is actually a spot where if he has 7-6 of clubs, 8-6 of clubs, 9-6 of clubs, 10-6 of clubs, and all of a sudden the 4th club comes out and he's well, hope he doesn't have the ace of clubs. I'm just gonna do the same bet and kind of see where I'm at.
That's also possible too. Yeah. Again, like
I know we
think
shouldn't
that he
think
has-
about it too much.
what?
I know we shouldn't think about that possibility too much.
No, but I think that he has enough in his range that's like worse value than a flush, though. To be honest, like I think he has enough two pairs, top pairs, and sets in his range that you will sometimes value own yourself here if you were to like raise, or bet river thinly or something. But I do think that you will also make money often enough. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I even might once again consider clicking this back at him. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting because like he probably will call with a lot of like worse value.
Yeah.
So it's definitely possible that against his range I could be raising and just trying to get it in like a kind of a sneaky way where he just winds up not having to call that much more on any street.
Yeah.
But I decide basically to just call. My thought is, there's definitely some amount of flushes in his range. There's a lot of other value in his range. I think if he shoves the river on a brick, that I can fold.
Agreed.
Because I haven't seen him triple barrel bluff. I think if he checks the river, it's interesting. But we can get there. As the river rolls off a brick, it's the 4 of spades.
Cool.
There's about 335 in the pot, so there's 4 clubs on this board. I've got 5-4 of clubs, which is the lowest flush. And we've got 4 of spades on the river. I've got about 215 behind, and the pot is about 330. And he now checks. Okay. So you're thinking maybe we can bet $100 here, or 80 bucks here, and get a crying call from possibly a queen, possibly some sort of 2-pair set combo.
Yeah, I bet 100 and fold to a jam. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense for all the reasons you talked about. I think for getting sort of max value from his range, we could have probably upped it a little bit. I wind up checking it back, and with this particular hand, I think there was no way I could have gotten more value, as he happily rolls over Jack of Hearts, 6 of Spades for Jack High.
What? Okay.
And cool. We take it down. But I think in general, you're probably right that
you probably won the max.
Yeah, I mean, from his specific hand, I don't think I don't think he's ever going to call even a min click, right? He's just going to be like, "Oh, you caught me." Like,
yeah.
But point taken that his double barrel donk bet same bet range. I thought this was an interesting hand because I was like, wow, like I know this is like we talk about this ad nauseum. It's like it just means it's a weak value hand. It's like top pair, but weak kind of changes connotation when you have depending on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 2-pair is a weak holding.
Yeah, like a set is weak on that board. So
absolutely.
So we do take it down, but it was obviously that's from that hand you can see why he was a great player to play with.
Absolutely, and that's why I said I don't have a problem with you 3-betting 5-4 suited there.
Yeah, because if I get a heads up with him, I'm just have tons of room to just play.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, I like it. That's a good hand. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back with our guest.
Cool.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with our special guest, Boobert. Boobert, you want to say hi?
How's it going, guys? Happy to be here.
This is really exciting because Boobert is going to share with us a bit of a history lesson about the origins and status of online poker which is conducted in chat rooms that are based on a certain popular platform whose name may or may not rhyme with Kiss Lord. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about that? I think you've been pretty involved.
I have been. It's been kind of a crazy journey, right? So late 2020, I was just just how the rest of us were being stuck in our homes. I just started playing poker semi-intensely in 2019, and then the pandemic hit, and I was just not really having a lot to do. So I ended up in a server called Corona de Gens, which hosted games from 25 cent, 50 cent to $1, $2. And I started by playing in 25 cent, 50 cent, and I realized that a lot of the people playing had no clue what was going on. And that I knew briefly that I could beat that. So and then as I noticed that the games kept getting bigger for a while, and then one day
Like bigger? Do you mean like bigger in stakes or bigger in popularity?
both, I would say, because at first I would say that it got more popular just from like people playing games with no rake and like getting paid out. Like that's kind of the dream, right?
Sure.
So people just kept, I mean, it kept getting bigger. And the way that I became a host, which I think is pretty funny. So one of the hosts back then, it was like he's not really around anymore, but he couldn't pay me the day of. So I just like kind of like I paid him to get into the game, and then after the game, he was going to pay me out. So I had to wait until the next day for him to pay me. And literally, I just waited until the next day, and he paid me, and he took me not complaining to him as like enough for me to be trustworthy enough to host games. So I didn't have to like convince anyone to host. Like literally within a week, I was just hosting games of whatever size. I thought that was pretty funny.
That is pretty funny. I mean, for those who aren't familiar, so the way that the games that are played on this chat platform tend to work, and it's a very high sort of trust-based environment. So typically there will be a host who kind of starts the game and uses sort of a free poker app, and will start the game and will accept buy-ins from anyone who wants to participate in the game using some sort of payment app, we can imagine ones that might rhyme with mash. Crap, for example, would be one. They accept those payments, and then the host is sort of a trusted person who has people that vouches for them, and then when the game's over, they'll pay out, everybody their respective amount.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's and I was also part of Corona Degens for a time, Boobert, so I remember those games starting small and being full of fish, and now the only people left are the people who won.
Yeah, it's rough. I just find it all very interesting, the whole hosting situation, because like different hosts have like different objectives for like what they're trying to accomplish when hosting a game. Like when I would host games, I would try to just I treated it like a home game - stream game where I would create like the best product, kind of, right? So whether that was from entertaining players, action players, or just people that were fun to be around at the table, like I would create games with those people. But other people would host games because in these games, like generally it's accepted that players will tip the hosts for being trustworthy people that don't scam, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting how like I host a game for a certain objective of like having the most fun and having entertaining players in games, but then like a different host will host for the objective of like earning tips, which like isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just I think it's interesting how everybody in the ecosystem has kind of their own objectives and how it fits into the puzzle, I guess, is what it turns into.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it is interesting, and it does. It makes a difference, I mean, the hosts that are trying to create sort of a fun, entertaining atmosphere. I mean, you notice it. It's
you definitely notice. I mean, different hosts just have different types of games.
Well, I would
say it's not even really a bad thing. Just
yeah, I mean, I would say like I always notice that you kind of tell the difference because like some hosts don't play in the games and some hosts do, right. And you kind of tell that the hosts who play in the games want to like play poker and have some fun with the people, like the best kind of people who are there, and the hosts that don't are just trying to like make a few extra bucks in tips, or probably more than a few extra bucks in many cases.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, especially in the larger games, they can get up there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a lot of people get pretty mad at me over the years for either not letting them in or really trying hard not to let them in, and they take it personally, but it's really not personal. Like if one guy provides more value to the game, but with entertainment, action, just being fun to be around, like I'm going to let that guy in over a guy that plays 10% of hands and doesn't say a word. And people just, I don't know if they don't understand it or they just don't like it that much to where they feel the need to complain. But I've been pretty open about that, and
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as like Hustler Casino Live or The Lodge, whatever, any of these live streams. Like they're trying to create an entertaining product, and if you aren't part of that, you're not going to get invited back. And I mean, that's how. I mean, home games in the real world work that way. I mean, it is not that easy to get invited to a home game, and you better not be, an asshole.
Right, like there's nothing wrong with winning, but if you like crush everyone else's spirit and like don't say anything and are a nit, then no, you're not going to come back to the home game. Like this stuff is not supposed to run, technically, right? Like so, it is not a public game where you are entitled to service.
Yeah.
100%. Glad we're on the same page. I mean, it's not like people would say that I just only invite like the worst players I can find, but that's not even the case. Like, you guys all know who Murph is. Like, Murph is a much better poker player than me, but he's been playing in my games for probably 2 years now. I mean, it's not solely find the worst players possible, because that's not sustainable anyways. You can't have a game of 10 players and 9 of them are whales. Like, it just wouldn't last.
And if you've listened to our podcast before, you'll know that we both very much subscribe to the mentality of there is a way to play well without being without being just unfriendly and awful and an awful person to be around. Being good for the table winds up helping your game more, because you're like, then whales want to play with you.
Right.
Exactly. I think that's kind of something that I've been good at. I think is just, I don't know, like, I think some hosts in the space in general don't approach it the right way. But the issue is that I'm kind of the only host that does this in terms of like trying to actively create games like this. But like, if you actually just take a genuine interest in someone's life, they're way more likely to play in your game. So like, if you want to create a game with a lot of action and these action players actually like you, they're going to come back and play. You just have to create a product that they actually want to be a part of.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, who do the recreational players want to play with? The like guy who sits down with sunglasses and earbuds and doesn't say a word, and like maybe wins a couple more big blinds an hour, at a public game, or the people who are like, asking them about their life and giving them action and stuff. There's all sorts of dynamics.
Exactly.
So,
no, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of been my general objective. But I think you mentioned this earlier, but the games definitely have shifted quite a bit since like early to mid 2021 to now. Like, as you said, a lot of the players that played back then have kind of trailed off for whatever reason, in terms of the space getting knocked out and then having to be rebuilt again. Like, that's happened a couple times. That hasn't helped. But I mean, it's just the different objectives at play that don't necessarily coincide well with one another. I think it's an interesting concept, because it is kind of like the real world in a way.
Oh, totally. It definitely is. So you also do have a hand for us, as I understand it. A hand you'd like to share. All right. Well, this will be good.
I would say both guest hands we've had in the past have just been absolutely ridiculous. So I can't wait to hear this one.
I think it's a little ridiculous. I don't know how ridiculous it is. I mean, we're both very deep, and one of the players is Alex Murphy, so you know him.
Yeah, he's quite the crusher.
Fans. He's a very popular player these days.
So what stakes are these? Is this game?
So this is 1-2. This actually is not. This is actually, I think it was yesterday or the day before. This is a different hand than I initially had, so it's
cool,
fresh on the top of my brain.
So this is 1-2 in these online rooms. So this is a big game.
Yeah.
This is a much bigger game than like a live 1-2 game.
Yes. No, we're about 800 effective in this 1-2 game, so like it's pretty big. Okay, I'll just start with the action. So we have 400 bigs effective. I don't remember who the player who opened. I believe it was a min open in middle position.
Very nice.
Murph 3-bet the cutoff. We're just going to assume standard sizing, because I don't remember the exact sizes, but I believe it was like 3x. I mean,
sure.
So we went min raise in middle position. Murph 3-bet the cutoff to 6.
Okay.
I cold 4-bet the button to 14 or 15 with ace queen of diamonds.
Sure.
And Murph called I guess I should. Did I say that Murph was on the cutoff and I'm on the button?
Yeah.
Okay. So then only Murph called. The initial opener folded.
So can we just talk sizing real quick? So if the middle position min opened, that'd be an open to 4, right? If we're playing 1-2.
Yeah.
And then let's assume Murph 3-bet the cutoff to 12, and then what do you think we 4-bet the button to? 2.5 or 3x?
I went to like 26 or 7, which I've since realized is too short. It's fine at 100 bigs, but it's not fine at 400 bigs, because the fold equity is just 0.
We actually just talked about this.
he should basically call this with his entire free betting range.
Yeah, pretty much, which is a problem. But I mean, we are in position, so like, I know we're supposed to actually go bigger in position, which is new. For a while, I thought we were supposed to go less in position because you have position and you don't need as many folds, but like it's also just better to play bigger pots in position than out of position. So like that.
Boy, we should have had you on this entire podcast. Mike's hand today, like we literally talked about an hour ago, went over this exact thing where we were talking about big versus small and the if you're out of position, you want people to like fold and so you want to bet more to incentivize that. But then if people call, you're stuck playing a big pot out of position. So
yeah. No, that was one of my biggest leaks really early. Is I would just 3-bet. I would 3-bet way too wide out of the small blind over raises, and I would just get called, and I would just be in horrible spots with like queen jack offsuit and 3-bet pots in the small. It's like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think for sizing here, like because you're so deep, I don't think it's crazy to go the full 3x, and because it's a cold 4-bet, you could even go like 3.5x. I think. I think
you're going a lot bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. So. But okay, you go 2.3 or something, which is probably solver approved. # solver approved.
It's with shallower, but it is kind of a big gap in this scenario because we're just giving him an incredible price.
Yeah. So
don't worry, we are nothing if not solver approved.
Yeah.
I wish I was more solver approved.
That's not true. That was a complete
Bankroll Burners # solver approved.
That was a lie. So we are on board with going bigger. But anyway, sounds like we're off to a flop.
Okay, so the flop is ace 6-5 2 diamonds where the ace is not a diamond.
Ace 6-5 2 diamonds. You have ace queen of diamonds.
Right.
And the pot is about like 60. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. So
great flop.
Right. What?
You flopped the world. Like this is great.
Yes, I mean it's a pretty nice flop.
Yeah.
So yeah, Murph checks. I mean, it's nothing really to say about that. He's never leading. I mean, he has 6-5, 5s and 6s, but I have aces, ace king, ace queen. No real. I don't think there's any. I could be proven wrong if they're supposed to ever lead here, but I would bet that you're not.
Yeah, I would, especially with the ace high board. I can't.
Yeah. So then I bet 1/8 pot, which is small, but like, I mean, I just have such a massive top end advantage where I think like he's already kind of in a terrible position with a lot of hands. So I figured we want to almost range bet the ace high rag board. I mean, the 6-5 isn't amazing because he definitely has 5s and 6s and ace 5, but we also have a pretty extreme range advantage at the top, I would argue.
Yeah.
Oh, I think for sure. I mean, yeah, 100%. Especially on ace high boards, I think you're supposed to go just really, really small in these 4-bet pots.
Right. I haven't actually studied this, but a lot of my study is just hearing. Like, I try to surround myself around players that are better than me, and just like. So
why are you here, man? This is the worst place to be if that's your goal.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't played with you guys very much, but yeah. So I mean, I've just heard people like on ace high boards. Like I've had people say that you should bet like a 10th or like really small in these situations. So I kind of just did this for that reason. Like I don't have a really good reason for why, other than just having heard good players say that it's good to bet tiny on ace high boards that are in 4-bet pots, really. So.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple thoughts. I mean, the first one is, I would say overall we probably do have, a nut advantage, but it might not be as extreme as you're thinking, just because there is a school of thought that kind of says when you're super deep, you don't really want to 5-bet any hands because you don't want to like play a super duper, you don't want to play a, 800 big blind pot with one pair. So there is, if Murph is subscribing to that theory, then he definitely can have the strongest hands in his range. Should be a smaller part, probably, compared to yours. But something to consider. The other thing I would say is I haven't studied this theory in depth on when to bet super tiny. I wonder if that might be more applicable when you're playing a bit shallower versus, when you have a strong hand here with a strong draw. I wouldn't go overboard. Like, I don't want to bet like full pot or anything, but if we sized up to 15 or $20, a quarter or a third pot, rather,
Yeah.
you know, maybe just something to sort of consider thinking
Yeah,
about.
you might be right. I mean, I honestly probably, I used to just buy in for dumb amounts to cover people, but like I really am not actually that incredible, like this deep. Like I'm not like terrible, but like I'm definitely not some kind of super pro that just like knows what to do in 500 big blind effective scenarios. I mostly like I used to do it when everybody was like it's kind of a funny bit where I buy in for like $30,000, like no one has more than 300, so it's like, oh my god, how did you really just buy in for $30,000? And it's like, no, I didn't, but it's
Right. It's like, I mean, this money. There is no universe in which like most of this money is ever in play. But like, yeah.
no, exactly. I haven't had people cover me before, and that was a little bit terrifying. But like,
It's funny.
not like anything can actually happen. I mean,
Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, you go 1/8 pot. So what is that? That's
750.
like 7 or 8 and 60 or something.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I assume he calls.
No, he actually raises.
Hmm.
He raises 4x.
Okay. Which is not a very big raise, actually, given the pot size.
It's tiny,
Yeah,
basically.
no, I mean- The fact that I bet that tiny makes it really not that big of a raise. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, what do you think he
Yeah.
has here?
Well, I mean, the issue, like, early on, I'm already like, shit, because he can have, like, 5 6s and 6 5 play exactly like this. So, I mean, and then he has some ace-5 suited that is all of it's priced in, and it, like, he can have some 8-9, 7-8, naked diamonds, but I have 2 of them. So, I mean, it's like, he could have maybe some 7, I don't, see, the thing is, I'm not sure if 7-8 and 8-9 are even, maybe the combo draws are going to raise, but like, it's an ace-high board and a 4-bet where I cold 4-bet pre-flop.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't have, like, I don't even think I have like ace-queen. Ace-queen off is a fold here, so like, I don't even have that.
Sure. I mean, I think that, yeah, it's like we talked about this a bit last week. It's like, how creative is he with his bluffs? You know, is he finding enough bluffs here? Like, because he actually has like a decent amount of value on this board, as you
Yeah.
pointed out, and he's also raising so small. So because he's raising so small, he doesn't need to find that many bluffs. I mean, if he made it huge, I'm like, are there even enough bluffs? So, but he made it pretty small. Like, he's giving you a reasonable price on your call, so he doesn't need to find like a ton of bluffs here. But to your point, they're basically just like gut shots, you know, which
Yeah.
there aren't that many.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, is he ever doing this with like Jack 10 of spades or something weird? Or I'm sorry, no, because that doesn't. That's
Maybe the backdoor one, like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
the pursuit of the ace, maybe, but like
Yeah.
that would even be kind of ambitious. I mean, I guess if he thinks I'm just c-betting 100% and I'm cold 4-betting too frequently, then he would maybe do that. But I don't think he thinks that I'm doing that. So I mean, I don't know.
Obviously, there are some portions of your cold 4-betting range that maybe, you know, he sees you betting so small and he thinks that you might be weighted, like, you know, towards kings or queens or something, where he's going to be
Yeah.
able to get a fold out of you, you know, eventually. So there are hands, because obviously there are hands you have where you don't have an ace. So there, you know, that it might be something. But also, yeah, I mean, backdoors, the sort of combo draws, backdoor combo draws could be those.
double backdoor.
Yes,
Yeah.
Maybe he found like king, jack of suited, whatever the ace was. It doesn't end up being
Let's
relevant.
call it the ace of spades just to make it easy.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Exactly.
Okay. All right. So I mean, I think you just have a call here.
Yeah, man. No, I didn't really find any reason not to just call. I mean, don't want to knock out all the bluffs and condense his range to only the very strongest hands he can have.
Right. I mean, so what are we?
Wouldn't
What's the
think.
pot? What's the pot at now? It's like 125.
120.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We still have like a lot behind. 6x
Yeah.
spot
Oh, yeah, we have
behind.
a lot. Right. Okay, so we do call. The turn is the 8 of diamonds, so
Ah.
we make the nuts.
Bink.
Nuts are good.
Yes. And he bets half pot. So I mean, like, there's definitely a portion of his range that we just crush here that he has like a flush still.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe like queen 10 of diamonds or something. See, that's the issue. We have 2 of them. So maybe like king jack of diamonds, king 10 of diamonds. I mean, those are kind of the only flushes he can have, really.
Yeah, this is the thing, like, this is a really weird line for him to take, I think, because I mean, so many of his like diamond hands would have the ace of diamonds. I mean, obviously you have it, but he doesn't know that. Like so many of the diamond hands he would have the ace of diamonds, I guess. So like it's just very, and like he isn't check raising those hands on the flop is the thing. So like he isn't like, I think with his flop check raise, like there aren't even a lot of flush draws, I guess. So I think this line is kind of weird from him. Well, I don't know how to interpret it exactly.
I just think that there aren't that many flushes in either of your range here, given that it's a four. As you said, you cold four bet. You probably don't have. I mean, you probably pretty much have ace king of diamonds and like ace queen of diamonds and some sliver of like, you know, ace five, ace four, ace three, ace deuce of diamonds. So he might, you know, that kind of would lead me to think that his value here is really still sets, and he's like, you know, I just don't, you know, this flush is unlikely to come in for you just because, you know, obviously you do have those ace x of diamonds, but it's not that many.
Like he can definitely value bet a set or two. He can value bet two pair because I mean I have to call ace queen, ace king with a single diamond here still. I mean without even a question. So like he's still getting value out of the same hands really.
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe it makes sense. I think the sizing is interesting. I don't know like what is the correct size. I mean I'm not a deep stack expert either. Like, I don't know what the correct sizing is here. If you have like two pair and the flush comes in, like what are you supposed to do?
You can't. It's just, especially in 4-bet pods, like I really don't know what the correct sizing is as you get deeper into the hand. Like it's just, it gets to the point where you're just putting in so much on the river where it's like, you kind of just have to, I don't know, like I just try to figure it out in real time. Like I don't know what the solver, I don't, do solvers even go up to 400 or 500 bigs? Like I don't think that they even do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah. So I mean, so you could raise here, or you could call. I mean, what are you thinking?
So I mean, like, it's tough because I think I probably could raise. In the moment, I really didn't think very long, and I called. But I think I could raise because, I mean, it's kind of bizarre in a way because, like, if I raise, it's like, how on earth do I ever have a bluff? Right. But, like, at the same time, like, how wide am I supposed to go for value at the same time? Like, am I supposed to go for value with, like, I don't know, like, I feel like ace, king, ace, queen with the ace of diamonds here is kind of, like, it's weird. Like, you could, like, a raise, like, what does it even accomplish? Like, he's just going to fold out the air and call with the hands that beat you, and then you have to figure it out in the river. Like, it's just kind of, I don't know. Like, yeah, that's my thought. I don't know. I called, but I don't know what's actually right.
The only, like, bluff I can think of that really makes much sense from you would be, well, no, that doesn't even make sense. So I don't even know, like, yeah, what bluffs do you have here? I can't even think of one.
I don't know, like, I was thinking maybe, like, but, like, it's just weird. Like, the hands that I would have as a bluff, like, it's weird to turn into a bluff, right?
Right.
So, like, maybe, like, kings or queens with a diamond, but, like, why would you do that? Like, you can just, I don't know.
Kings and queens, that's interesting, because I think when he check raises the flop and then continues on turn, his value definitely has kings or queens crushed. So,
yeah.
It, like...
No, you're definitely not, like, you're not bluff catching those. I mean, maybe you are, but I don't know, like I mean, those are not like, value hands ever.
Right. You could use it as a bluff catcher, like kings with a diamond is like, well, I'm blocking from having flush. But I actually do think turning kings with a diamond or queens with a diamond into a bluff is probably correct. Like, but like the thing is, it might be, but like he might think to himself like, is Boobert really doing this? You know, and he might just make sort of sick fold. You know,
I've been no, I definitely. I mean, I'm very aware of my reputation, so like I have to take that into account. The fact that people just think I'm a nit. So, like, I have to, like, I try to take that into account. But the issue is that I mean, Murph's not really in this camp, but a lot of people just don't fold regardless. So, like, it's like...
Yeah, we're well aware of this, not of your reputation, but of, people just knowing someone's, you can watch someone in live poker play literally 0 hands and then get 3 calls anyway when they raise for the first time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You know what might be interesting here is if you call turn and then, like, plan to bet very large on river, where like you might do this with like ace king with a diamond, where you are trying to like especially like ace king with the ace of diamonds, where you're just gonna call turn, but then if he bets river, you're probably not good, so you might turn that. Like you might have more hands you turn into bluffs on the river, so possibly you can go for the raise on the like a huge raise on the river, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just interesting because at the same time, like you don't want to. Well, so like there are like as you said, there really aren't that many flushes for him to have. Just because we have the ace queen of diamonds, like there's like literally two, like maybe king jack and king 10 of diamonds, and that's it.
Right.
But like for most of the time, we're just ahead. Like even his value that was value on the flop, we're ahead of that even.
I would say
so it's like
he can probably have a couple more flushes. I would think he'd probably have like 9, 10, jack 10 of diamonds.
Yeah, I guess
he might 3-bet those, and we might. And again, given our 4-bet pricing, he's probably going to call with those.
He's got. So I guess maybe you do have a little bit more than I would have anticipated.
Not a ton, anyway. Like point taken. I kind of like Mike's idea because I do want to be raising at some point. Like obviously, it's interesting because I wonder if the river raise is going to look stronger because river raises often look stronger. But if you're playing relatively balanced and he's like kind of and he sounds like he's a thinking player, relatively balanced as well, then that kind of goes out the window. My experience is definitely more suited to live poker where like river raises are just always the nuts.
Always the nuts. I mean, even in these games, like
right,
you could probably name on one hand how many players are bluff raising the river for a fuck ton of money. Like it's a very short list of people.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really not super different from live. It's definitely different, but it's not like it's not the same.
You know what's actually interesting here though? I'm just thinking about this. If he has a set, which like he very well might, or I mean, if he has a smaller flush, obviously like we're getting value all day if we raise. But the thing about it is if he has a set, we can raise an amount that gives him the correct price to call with like where he can still make a boat on the river. So I actually do think that a raise is in order, not a very large one. I think like maybe we just make it 3x or something, Like,
yeah, maybe you're right. I mean,
we can get value from a set that is supposed to call, especially with the implied option.
Yeah, especially the sets are definitely supposed to call because I mean they can improve.
Right, exactly. So I actually do think a raise is in order here after this look.
I think so too. You might be right. I mean, especially when he does continue betting, like he's probably going to give up at least a decent amount on the turn with like the gutters. I mean,
yeah. I
guess the gutter. What was it? It was the 8. I'm trying to remember. What was the
yeah, well, but
it was the 8. So like one of them does get there, but I don't think that's even 9-7 is not part of the equation here. I think he just folds pre-flop.
No, and I kind of agree. I would say, just thinking about how deep we are, it's like to your point, a lot of his bluffs, if he is running some sick bluff, like he is going to give up some amount of the time on the river, and we're not going to make any more anyway. And if he does have a set, I want to get more money now, like while he has equity. Yeah. And if he has a higher flush, I would kick, or a lower flush, I would kick myself if we didn't stack him, right? So
yeah. So I think we got a raise here.
I think you're probably right. I didn't even consider that in game, which is my own fault. But that's interesting because you're definitely right.
But I mean, there is merit to calling where if he does have bluffs that he wants to continue with on the river, like we are gonna make more, right? But how many, as you've said, how many bluffs can he really show up with at this point?
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah.
So
another reason that I decided on call is that we are in position, so like we can make sure that the money goes in later. Where if we're like out of position, we're definitely raising because like we just can't take the chance of him checking back and just a weird river like out of position like the weird river lead after calling 2 streets is just it's kind of bizarre. And, like,
usually pretty unbalanced.
Well, let's go to the river.
Yeah. So what do we got?
The river is a serious doozy. So the river is an ace. So the board pairs with the ace.
So let's review this here. So we have ace. Let's say ace of spades, 6 of diamonds, 5 of diamonds. Turn is the 8 of diamonds. Yeah. The pot is now, what are we at? 120. We said.
So 240. Right? We're now at 240 on the river, basically.
We're at 240 on the river.
I think it was big. I weirdly remember this. Okay, I'm gonna make an adjustment. Somewhere along the line, I think he might have raised bigger on the flop because I have a vivid memory of how big I bet on the river. And it was I bet. So the river goes, he checks the river, which I found kind of notable. He checked the river, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet 50%, which was 160 into 320. I think he might have 4.5 or 5x the flop.
Okay, that's
fine.
So the river is 320, you said?
Yeah.
And the river is an ace of, let's say, clubs.
Yeah.
And
He checks.
he checks to you.
He
Okay.
checks,
Is
and I bet half pot.
is he ever taking a boat this way? Is he ever checking a boat on the river?
I'm not sure. I think he's supposed to. Because,
Probably
I mean,
sometimes.
I have call the check raise and call the turn bet. So, like, and then the ace, like, I think with the ace, like, I'm probably value betting quite a large portion of my range still. Like, so you can probably still make sure it gets in if it's a boat.
Right, you're
But I'm
almost
not-
never checking back an ace here, probably.
Right.
So yeah, he's
So,
probably
like, he
supposed to
probably
check.
puts me on an ace or better at this point.
Okay.
I
Well
mean,
then,
I guess the question is, if I have ace king offsuit with a diamond, like I'm definitely betting ace king with a diamond on the river.
Oh
if
yeah,
he checks.
all day.
for sure.
Right? Yeah. So I mean, I think that a boat probably should check like a decent amount here, and there's also like, he also could have like, he also still has two pair like, although the more I think about it, is 6-5 betting the turn for him, because he has like that's squarely in his range.
Uh,
I'm not sure.
yeah. I mean, I think you probably do bet. You probably bet fold, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean,
So
that's kind of
you're probably not getting value from 6-5.
No,
I think
no.
turning. Yeah, I mean, and maybe he might feel the need to bluff with 6-5 on the river. Actually, though, is another thing. He may turn it into a bluff when the board.
yeah.
pairs like
That's you're getting. Okay.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, we get 50%. What were you saying? I'll let you.
I was just gonna say, like, on the sizing on the river, like, are you supposed to, like, what sizing do you want to take? I mean, you're trying to get value from what?
I'm not
Like
even
ace
sure.
king?
It's
ace king
such a bizarre
checking?
situation because I
Yeah.
feel like a very large percentage of the time we're just ahead, but on the other, like not a very large, much less large than the turn, but like we're ahead like a decent chunk of the time. Like I feel like we just have to bet. I
No,
just
I'm not
don't
saying
know.
you shouldn't bet. I'm just trying to say how big. Like, what
Yeah,
are
I
you
don't know.
targeting? Yeah, what? Like, you're
I'm not sure. Like maybe an ace with a diamond, but it's literally only ace king with a diamond with one diamond.
two combos of it, right?
Exactly. Like there's such a small like it's
And worse
Yeah,
flushes
how-
too. You can target.
yeah. There's still like the Broadway flushes or like the smaller flushes. So
But
maybe we should just bet like a third.
But I would think those
Or what?
flushes are also continuing to bet the river.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Because like there aren't that many boats that we should have, right? There's one combo of ace five suited left, and there's one combo
Yeah.
of pocket aces.
for quad.
Yeah, which is exactly.
So that's like
Yeah.
I mean you just if he had a flush here, there's no reason for him to be scared. I guess one
No,
combo
yeah.
like some pocket eights potentially, although we might not even call the check raise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean with eights, I don't know how eights gets there for either of us to be honest, but I mean
Yeah. I mean, he should really be betting his flushes to try to get value from an ace. So you're right. I mean, he
Yeah.
probably just has like ace king here sometimes, which you're beating, and then he has boats,
Yeah.
and then like I don't even know. Like I think that's it. He
Right.
has like ace king and like boats. So
yeah, I mean like
that
what do
being
you? I'm not even sure. Like maybe you could have 6-5 too.
yes. Well, but he might continue with 6-5 to bluff. But I mean, you're not gonna
Yeah.
get value from 6-5 anyway. But
No. But like yeah, I'm trying to think of hands that like arrive at the river that might check and like
I would probably bet 1/3. I think that you can
Yeah.
get value from ace king, and then in terms of
you're right.
like what is he turning into a bluff when you make it 1/3? Like I think he just has to call with most of his flushes, so I don't think he's turning those into a bluff.
Yeah.
He could turn 6-5 into a bluff, but that's literally 3 combos versus like
Yeah.
all of the boats. He has 3 combos of 5-5, 3 combos of 6-6.
Yeah. I wonder-
one combo of ace-5.
So like I'm gonna tell you what he does. He goes all in,
Oh,
which
wow.
is like I believe it was 3.5x.
Yeah.
So it's like so the thing is like probably 99.3% core population. This is just a boat and nothing else.
Right.
But like Murph, I think could bluff like you've mentioned 6-5 like 7 or 8 times. I think he would bluff raise 6-5 here.
Sure.
So like that kind of
Well, what kind of price are you getting?
it's
Josh.
He jams for 580 total. So we have to call 420 to win 640. So this raises for basically exactly 2/3 pot.
Okay.
yeah.
We have to call 420 to win.
To win 640 because we bet 160 into 320.
Right, but
So
you
that's how it works. His call makes the pot 640, and then we are calling an additional 420 on top.
Yeah,
That's
but I'm
about
just saying, like, the pot is 1,000 something.
Oh yes, sure.
That's what I'm saying.
So 1,060. So it's it's like a
like
2.5 to 1, right?
Yeah, 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1. I mean, so
Something like that.
yeah, so like if he has if 6-5 is 3 bluff combos, that means that he needs to have 9 value combos for this to be a profitable call. He has 3 of
7.
each set. Sorry, he has 3 of the 2 sets. He has 1 ace-5. So that's 7 value combos. So theoretically, this is overbluffed. So you probably just close your eyes and call. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what went through my head. Like, the thing is, like, before I even bet the river, I decided that I was calling if he shoved because I just thought he could actually have 6-5 and just show like 'cause 6-5. I think 100% is exactly played this way.
And if he ever jams like King Jack of Diamonds, also then it weights it even more heavily.
I mean, yeah, if he ever has King Jack of Diamonds, we're snapping this off. I mean, I think we're just supposed to put it in, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more wondering, like, there really aren't any other bluffs. Like, he's not going to turn an ace into a bluff because he blocks boats. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's literally just if he's raising 6-5, and if he is, we have to call, and if he isn't, then we don't. And I think he is.
And he could have some random other, like, he could sometimes maybe have other bluffs like 8-7 suited that like makes a pair and was a busted open ender from the flop. And now it technically blocks boats, although like not really. So I agree. I think he just doesn't have enough value combos that beat us. I think we just have to call.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, by my tone, you could probably tell that I was not ahead. But I think that I think I'm supposed to just put it in here because he can have 6.
Against capable players, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say against most people, this is pretty much just a fold. But against a capable player,
against a lot of players. This is kind of why I thought this would be a good hand because like it's actually against a thinking player where it's not just your classic live 1-2 hand where it's like, okay, that guy's never bluffing.
Right.
I fold and like don't even think about it.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty easy fold in like a live.
Yeah.
But so we call and what does he show?
He had 6s. Yeah.
But I mean that is
played by him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean I was really worried when the river here was like, oh shit, 5s or 6s are now ahead, but like I have to bet. The check was really a great check by him because like I'm still betting a lot of hands for value there and he can like he's very infrequently am I not betting most of my hands there for value in the ace hits. It's a pretty genius line from 5s and 6s, I think, and he's probably balancing it by bluffing 6-5, I would think. So I mean, it's a pretty well played hand by him.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I will say, if you went 1/3 on the river, you may be able to fold? Possibly. It might be close.
If he still goes to the same size, maybe.
Yeah, it might be closer. But anyway.
So, yeah.
Really interesting hand, actually. Really good. So thanks for that one.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, it was a fun hand. I mean, I did not come out on the winning end, but it was definitely an interesting hand for sure.
Josh, you have any final thoughts?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. Unfortunate for you that he did have the value, but I think given what we've discussed, if he's jamming 5-6 all the time, then we just have a square call.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, based on playing with Murph for a couple of years, I have to think that he is. I mean, it's good to do it because it makes all of my hands just puts it in the blender. Really, like I'm not sure. I don't know. I guess another interesting question about this is like, would I call here with ace king with a diamond? That's the other question. But like, I don't know.
No, I think
you're probably right.
Yeah, I think that's
which makes this a great bluff.
Yeah. absolutely. If it is, if he busts.
Yeah.
So.
If he has the 6-5, yeah.
Well, cool.
Well, that's all the time we got. So, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was great to hear another interesting hand that doesn't come from us. We can think about it, a little more critically than when we have to defend our own poor play.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Cool. All right. Well, everybody, you've wasted some more time listening to us torch our bankrolls. Thank you very much. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment how you would have played it better.
I'm sure you could have.
You definitely could have. All right. We'll catch you guys later. Bye, everyone.
Peace out.